scheduled Facebook Live, and it's not only Facebook, but it's also YouTube and it's Periscope Live. And the difference this time is we tried this out last week, but I specifically just did it impromptu and came up. So basically, what I wanted to do today was basically come on scheduled, see if that increases our watching, our viewing, if people see it. And hopefully you're seeing this well and hearing well. If you're hearing me well and seeing me well, please comment. If you're viewing live, if you're viewing recorded, thank you so much. So I thought today what we'd do is a little bit of updates of things going on at the Spooky Studio. And then also we would do some Q&A with you today and probably go about 30 minutes. So great. Sharon from England is here. I know she was upset she had missed some of the early ones. And so glad that we were able to catch up with her today. Lonnie says, looks and sounds great. Carol says, looking good. Belinda says, Jim, how are you? Good to see you. Hey, hello, Bandrew from Podcastage. So good to see you. And we're testing the multi-streaming capability of StreamYard. It seems to be working really well, and hopefully you're catching us and it's working well. Valerie put in that she's from Jacksonville, Florida. So if you could go ahead and type in where you're from, we'd like to share with the folks. And we have about 20 people on, so it's starting out pretty decently. And Chris, I know, is from England. Audio and video fine from here. So I'm glad everything is checking out, looking good and sounding good. And so glad to see that. So basically just type in, if you can, where you're from. We'll say hello for a couple minutes and then we'll launch into your questions. Aurora says, you sound great, Jim. And Aurora made a good thing here, what she did. If you're in my virtual campfire group, because of privacy, Facebook does not automatically show your name. So if you want to post your name, if you're in the virtual campfire group, you have to type in your name first. It's unfortunate that it works that way, but that's just the way it is because that is a closed group. So like Aurora did, if you're in a virtual campfire group, you want to say, hey, say where you're from, just put your name first. Carol is from Fort Worth, Texas. Nevada is Bandrew. I did not know Bandrew was from Nevada. By the way, if you're interested in things like this, microphones, this is the RE27. Just go over to Podcastage on YouTube, and Bandrew does a fantastic job. And I follow his videos religiously, and I love them. So do check that out. Elam says hello to Belinda. I did say hello to Belinda, but hello, Elam, and hello again, Belinda. Kelsey says, creepy cool studio. Hello, friends from Chico, California. Elam is from Manchester. Lonnie is from Southwest Ohio, West Alexandria, Ohio, a fellow Buckeye, and certainly one of our favorite fans. We really appreciate everything Lonnie does to help spread the word. V, hello from Maryland, good to see you. Maddie says, looking good. Hey, Maddie, how you doing? Nice to see you there. Excellent. It was great to meet Maddie at Podcast Movement. So many people I met at Podcast Movement that are doing so many great things. People I'd known online for years. So if you're into podcasting, do go to that event. It was great. Diane's hello from Chicago. Hope you're doing well. Love these live broadcasts. Hello, Diane. And here again from the virtual campfire, if you want to put your name in first so we can say your name, but we have a virtual campfire member from St. Petersburg, Florida. So yeah, I just wanted to make mention of a couple things. We are going to do here it is, a live Halloween party where you're watching this. We're going to do it Saturday, October 26th at 7 p.m. We did a poll on Facebook just to determine when people wanted it. I usually do it on Halloween, but I know that can be tough, especially if you have small children or you have plans. So the consensus was, let's do it on Saturday. So if you tune in here where you're watching right now for Saturday, October 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, obviously, if you're overseas, that time is going to go off of that. I'll probably go for about 4 hours. We could go longer if there's like this great clamoring and we have this huge crowd, but people usually dress up a lot of times and we can bring them in on video if you're open to that. We are going to do some trivia. We're going to do some giveaways. So that should be a lot of fun. That will be on Saturday, October 26th. Jim Collison, happy Monday to you, Jim. Another guy I got to meet at Podcast Movement, and really he and Dave Jackson have sung the praises of StreamYard. So kudos to them for kind of bringing this to the podcast community as a great solution. So hats off to Jim, and hello, Jim. Sharon says, that sounds amazing. Love to see you at the Halloween party. That would be great. David says, was up from St. Helens, Merseyside. I love our participation from the UK. It is fantastic. Now, this is a person, I could just leave that comment up there. Jim, looking handsome as ever. Very kind. Thank you. We got Facebook user from Los Angeles. Party sounds fabulous. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Okay. Yes. Jim is a great guy to follow. He has various podcasts. He does Ask the Podcast Coach, and he does a number of tech podcasts as well. You want to look this guy up. He's very, very good. Angie says, hey, Jim. Paul says, hello from Mysteries and Monsters podcast. Hey, Paul, thanks for joining us and really appreciate it indeed. So do we have any questions? Do we have any questions about the shows? Anything you'd like to see on the shows or hear on the shows? Anything you'd like me to do on live video? We've invested quite a bit of money in equipment. I hope that it shows. And we want to do more on video. So what would you like to see on video? Would you like to see me do interviews on video? What would you like to see on video? Chris says he'll be an Aviary during the Stone Circle. How cool is that? During the Halloween party, but he'll try to stream it live if it works. That's kind of cool. Let's see here. Oh, loved the chat with Podcast Movement on Podlords. Question. So what's the biggest takeaway you got from Podcast Movement 19? That podcasting is here to stay. You know, when you're stuck in the bunker here, and with apologies to my friend Micah Hanks, who has his bunker, Spooky Studio, when you're stuck in the Spooky Studio here with just a microphone and you're talking to people over Squadcast or Zoom or whatever it might be, there's a certain video game aspect to it. You forget there's real people on the other end. And just going to Podcast Movement for me was a concrete representation of how exciting the space is. Kind of scary because it's growing so fast with all these big companies coming in, but hopefully that'll just bring more people into it. So Bandrew, for me, the biggest takeaway is that podcasting is big. It's here to stay. It's only growing. And it was great. The personal connections were great. I would highly recommend it if you get a chance to go next time. I'm actually going to the LA event, which honestly, I'm not even sure what it is, even after talking to Jared Easley, who's one of the co-founders, but I'm looking forward to it. And then, of course, I'm going to the Dallas event next summer. Let's see. Does the phone work behind you? Well, I think it would work if I plugged it into something. He's talking about, let's get this wrong. This phone right here, that phone, that belonged to my in-laws. And when we sold their house after they passed, that was there. And I said, ooh, I asked my wife, do you mind if I take this? It's not plugged into anything, and use it in the Spooky Studio. It's a great set piece. Alex said, boy, you come in a couple minutes late, and I have no idea how much I said. Well, rest assured, none of it was worth anything. So Bandrew says the audio and video looks and sounds excellent. That is the idea. Thank you so much. James says live interviews would be a great start. I'd love to do that. I did one with Varla Ventura. You can find it on my timeline. She was a great guest, but we were having a lot of technical issues, I think, on her side. That's the only thing. Sometimes I know a lot of the podcast shows do this type of thing, StreamYard and so forth. I know Ray Ortega of the Excellent Podcasters Roundtable is doing. But the thing is that when they're connecting to other podcasters who tend to have better audio setups, better video setups, good internet. The trouble is when I try to do these with people who just have garden variety setups, it seems like I always run into problems. But I am going to probably do more interviews via video because I got to do something with all this equipment. Valerie says, would love to see an interview with Sven Gulli. I think you two would be great together. I love that idea. Sven Gulli, of course, I believe Chicago, the big horror movie host. And I love that idea of doing some stuff with horror movie hosts. I think they are so cool and they've contributed so much. Oh, yes. George, what is your opinion on the Air Force colonel coming forward on the Joe Rogan podcast? First of all, I got to say this. I think Rogan is fantastic at what he does. I know some people begrudge him and why has he got such a big podcast? He's really good. He really reminds me in a lot of ways of Howard Stern, like deceptively good. You know, you go for this shtick and the guy's built up and the MMA and all that stuff. But at the heart of it, he's a very good interviewer, although he does it maybe differently than a lot of people would do it, maybe more unconventional. That colonel, I watched some of those clips. I didn't watch the whole show, but I watched some of those clips. He comes across as extremely credible. And I think that is a reason we really should, one of the reasons we should really look at the UFO phenomena seriously. You have very credible people coming forward with, now real photographic evidence. Now, am I saying that the Tic Tac video is little green men? No, it might not. It might be other military aircraft. It could be something from a parallel universe. I don't know, but it certainly was something, and it came from a very credible source. So, yeah, I think it should be looked into. Let's see here. I just don't want to miss any comments. Robert says, greetings from Southern California. Jim, wondering if maybe one day you could do something on the Detloff Pass mystery someday. Such a strange event that always fascinated me, and thanks for keeping me entertained with the podcast on my graveyard shifts. Robert, it is my pleasure. So glad you listened, and thank you very much. We actually have done shows on the Detloff Pass. I can't remember if it's on the plus side. They're probably all on the plus side now. But Ryan Sprague wrote a very interesting article at jimharold.com. You can go to my site, type in Detloff Pass and find it. And that's certainly a very, very odd thing that happened over in the Soviet Union at the time, and worth exploring more. So yeah, I'd love to do more shows on that. Do you feel a disclosure would? I'm not sure, George, would happen soon. I'm not banking on it. I'm not banking on UF disclosure soon. Facebook user said, please do some interviews on live video. Nick Redfern. Also, are you going to the DC podcast event in November? I am not going to that event. And Nick is always a great guest. He usually likes to do his interviews on just telephone. So, I don't know. I'd love to interview him on camera too, if he's up for it. If you could find out the truth about one thing related to the paranormal, what would it be? That is such an easy question, Corey. What happens to us after we die? Because as I often say in the show, we're not all going to see Bigfoot. We're not all going to see a UFO. But I hate to be the one to break it to everyone. We're all going to die. So what happens after that? That would be the one I'd be looking for. What's the story with the football helmet? Well, actually, it's funny. I was just invited to be on a podcast this last weekend with a gentleman from the Seattle area, Brendan, and he has a Seattle Seahawks podcast, and we're talking about the game that just passed. And unfortunately, my Browns lost, but what's new? But anyway, I thought maybe we were doing videos, so I have this in my spooky studio as just a decoration. And I put it there for video interest in case we did the show, and I just didn't move it. So that's the story. It's the Cleveland Browns. That's my hometown team that I follow. They're absolutely horrible, and we're going to have yet another disappointing season. But yet I am a glutton for punishment, and I continue to follow them. Don't ask me why. All right. Big money question. Bigfoot, descendant of ape, extraterrestrial, or pan-dimensional being? I think if Bigfoot is real, I think it's an animal. The APC podcast, Paranormal Chicks, I believe. Certainly, I would be interested in talking. I don't know, specifically what you have in mind, but I'd love to chat. So send me an email, jim@jimharold.com, jim@jimharold.com, and we'll chat. Maybe we'll do an interview or something. That would be cool. Sandy says, I have YouTube and Facebook open, so I'm seeing you twice. This is like the last party I was at. Double vision. Hey. Sharon says she loves UFO alien subjects. So cool. Matthew, hi, Jim. I wondered if your thoughts on the paranormal have differed at all since your podcast begun. Actually, it's funny you asked that because I asked Dave Schrader this morning. I interviewed him, which will be on the Paranormal Podcast tomorrow. Of course, he's doing the Holzer Files on Travel Channel. Ask him the same question. Yes, it has differed. When I started, I thought of very conventional explanations. Ghosts are the dead. UFOs are probably space aliens. Bigfoot is an animal. Now I stick with that Bigfoot is an animal one. But on the other questions, I believe more than ever that something's going on, but I don't necessarily think that all UFOs are little green men or all ghosts are departed loved ones. I think that there are more possibilities if you talk about things like parallel universes and so forth. I think there's more possibilities. How about the Philadelphia experiment? That's one I've wanted to do a show on for years. The gentleman who I think was the Al Bielek, I think was the foremost promoter of that. And that's one I grew up with because there was a movie on it and everything. That one's always fascinated me, but it doesn't seem like, unless I missed it, and if somebody knows of this, there haven't been any recent works on it. So it's difficult for me to find somebody to interview on it, but I've wanted to do a show on that for years. Now, I have talked about with people like I think Nick Redfern and so forth in the context of broader interviews. But that's one that fascinates me because it seems like there's probably some kind of kernel of truth to that. Now, whether if it was this idea that they took a battleship, I think in 1943, and were able to time travel it and bring it back, I don't know, but something was going on. George, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your lunch break. Thanks for joining us. Patrick from Menor. Oh my, that's in my neck of the woods. Just introduced my girlfriend Jenny to all your podcasts and she loves them. Well, Jenny, thank you. And Patrick, thank you. Jim Bob says, I said Joe Rogan just says out loud what we're all thinking. That's true. He doesn't, sometimes I try to put my questions in a genteel way and be kind and things. And Joe just comes out and says it, you know, and I think there's something to be said for that authenticity. Elam, I would love to get him on the show. I think it's going to be very, very difficult, but I would love to. A paranormal chick said, will do. Yes, send me an email, jim@jimharold.com, and we will chat. Does anyone in your family enjoy the paranormal as much as I do? No. What are some of their favorite topics? But my wife does have a sense about it. I mean, from very early on, before I ever podcast or anything, we did talk about these topics. So I wouldn't say she's as deep into it as I am. So I'm really pretty deep into it. But I would say that she definitely has an interest. There's no question. Naomi says, would you consider interviewing someone like Zach Baggins? I believe is what she's trying to say there. Absolutely. But a hard person, again, to get. We do our best. We do our best. The Holzer Files gave us chills. It was so creepy in the best way. Yeah, I really like Dave Schrader and what he does. We started out about the same time. And as I said on the show, the thing about Dave is that he's achieved a lot of success. He was a guest host on Coast to Coast AM, and he's done multiple TV shows and now the Holzer Files. But he's not one of these guys who, once he's made it, he kind of forgets you. We stay in pretty constant contact, and he's always willing to come on the show. So I appreciate that. He does a great job. Wendy, hi from Mike and Wendy. Hey, Holiday Maker Travel. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Mike. These are the guys that we did a paranormal cruise with a few years ago, and they're great people. And if you like paranormal cruises, check out what they do. Absolutely. Have you had David Paulides on the Paranormal Podcast? I feel like I saw the missing 411 title there recently, but I've only discovered him and his content. Terrifies me to go camping now. Okay, I'm going to tell everybody the story of David Paulides and what happened. And this is not to cast aspersions on him in any way. I'm just going to be very forthright and tell you what happened. As many of you know, I've been doing this full time for 7 years. But previous to that, I worked a full-time job and did all these shows. So anyway, Mr. Paulides was kind enough to agree to come on the show. and send me a book, which was great. And we were scheduled to go, but he said very specifically, pick out the stories you want to discuss and let me know a few days before, I think it was. It's the rough idea, which was reasonable. Well, the truth is that I was working two jobs with two small children and a wife, a lot of responsibilities. So I didn't get to do that in the time frame that he asked. I think what happened was we were going to talk later that afternoon or later that evening, and I sent him that information that morning, a few hours ahead. And he basically replied, well, you've not given me enough time to prepare, so we can't go forward with the interview. And multiple apologies and attempts after that. He has said that he hasn't said anything. He won't reply to my emails. So that's his right. I think his work is tremendously interesting. And I know we could get it out to a few more people, but it's a free country. And if he doesn't want to participate, and I did drop the ball in not meeting his parameters, I think that, I've been on many, many shows talking about my books, and usually I, I just hit the ground running. But different strokes for different folks. So it's okay. But that's why we've never had David Paulides on the show. And again, I think he does fascinating work. And, if he ever changes his mind, David, we're here. Have I read Annie Jacobson's book on Area 51? If so, any thoughts of the theory provided of Roswell? Yes, I have. And actually, Annie has been on the show several times. She's fantastic. If you don't know who Annie Jacobson is, you should find out about her. She's a fascinating person and a real journalist. I believe she's worked for years, written for the LA Times and has won multiple awards. And she's on shows like Rogan and things. And she's been on our shows before. She's a great person. Her theory, I don't know that I want to give a spoiler, but it's a drastically different theory than the alien theory on Roswell. I think it might be possible because, Andrew, I think something happened at Roswell. I don't think there's any question. The fact that they came out, I think, in the Roswell Daily Record and said that, we've captured a flying, something happened. I believe something happened. I don't believe the whole mogul weather balloon thing. I think something extra to the base or U.S. personnel happened there. I'll say this much: her theory involves the Soviets. Interesting theory. Do you have a paranormal bucket list, such as places to see or certain guests to interview? That's a good question. The person I really would have loved to interview, number one on my list, never got to interview him, is Art Bell. I look at Art Bell, former host of Coast to Coast AM, the guy who kind of invented this genre. Of course, there were people like Long John Nebel in the 60s and things who did paranormal talk before him, but it was kind of, I think, in mix with other things he did. But Art Bell's my number one request that I would have liked to have interviewed. Unfortunately, we'll never get that chance. I'd love to interview people like Rogan, Zach Baggins, the gentleman with the Tic Tac video. Some of those people are very hard to get. We try, we'll do our best. But other than that, I mean, for example, I'm working on another interview with Eric Von Daniken. Although he's not paranormal per se, more the UFO ancient aliens thing. But I've interviewed a lot of great people. So in terms of interviewees, I've hit most of them. In terms of places, I got to go to Stonehenge this summer, which was super cool. And I would like to tour some more of the places around the States. I need to do that. I'm so busy making shows, I'm not getting out there experiencing. I need to do more of that. Let's see. Daniel says, have you ever heard of the story possession of Lee Sober Shapiro? It is easily the most elusive case I've ever encountered. The only info available is in Zach Baggins' Haunted Museum. I have not. So I'd like to do that. I'd like to learn more about that. Facebook user says, I love the way you conduct your interviews and respond to campfire callers, Jim. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hi, Jim. Hope you're well. My question is different, but are you into horror movies? And if so, what is your favorite? Sarah, thank you so much for tuning in today. I like more psychological thrillers or less blood and guts. Exorcist, The Conjuring, Amityville Horror, The Shining. That's kind of the genre I like. Let's see. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Chris says, my battery's about to die, so I shall bid you farewell. Chris is the admin over our virtual campfire group. He is the best, and we thank him so much for being part of that. Sharon, do you think that you and Dar will come back to the UK again? I'm hoping so. PJ from Berea, Ohio. I love your show. This is a bit off topic, but I'm wondering if you're planning to do another ornament contest this year. If so, I want to make sure I get it on my priority list. Good question. Guess what? We are doing I just put a post out on it this weekend. We'll announce it November 1st, the specifics, but we are going to do another holiday ornament contest. And you send in your ornaments and we'll be giving away some neat prizes again. And we had a great response last year, and I kind of announced it at the last minute. We want to give people plenty of time. So November 1st, we will be announcing there will be a Spooky Studio holiday ornament contest. So PJ, get your thinking cap on, start designing. Star says, I want to comment that I've been listening to the Campfire for years, and I think you're a very talented podcaster. Thank you so much. Patrick from the Big Seance podcast, I saw his post. He's in St. Martin in the Caribbean, and I'm in Cleveland. I'm jealous. Patrick, I hope you're having a great time. Well deserved. Patrick is also a teacher, and I know that is not an easy profession. So enjoy your time off, sir. Sarah says, all my favorite films. Thank you for replying back. Thank you, Sarah. I've been getting the DVDs of In Search of from the library for the past month. You'd be the perfect host for a reboot of that show or something similar. Well, they kind of have that covered. Zach Quinto, I believe it is, who played Spock in the Star Trek movies after Leonard Nimoy, of course. He's there and does a fine job. I would have loved to have done a show like that, but nobody's asked. So I just think, with this face, I'm not going to end up on TV, and that's okay. I wanted to get some messages out here about a few things before we go. I have some new gear out. Just go to jimharold.com/gear. That's jimharold.com/gear. And I hope that you enjoy it. jimharoldbooks.com, jimharoldbooks.com, or Amazon. We have some books, campfire books, that are based on my show, available for 99 cents for the Kindle. So please do check that out. jimharoldbooks.com. paranormalplus.com. Your first month, 95 cents with the coupon code. Again, jimharoldplus.com. Your first month, only 95 cents with a coupon code. And then finally, the Halloween party is here Saturday, October 26th at 7 p.m. ET. That's Saturday, October 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And I hope you can join us. Well, we've gone about a half hour here. I hope that everybody had a good time. And I really appreciate it. I'm just taking a look here. And I like this. Apparently, I've not been a subscriber to YouTube, but I am now. I've been with all your podcasts since before you went full time. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. And have a great week, everybody. And stay spooky, and some great shows coming up this week. So stay tuned. Thanks.